what are algorithms, why is the study of algorithm worthwhile, analyzing algorithms, Naive algorithm, and efficient algorithm. So first of all, first question arises, what is basically algorithm? So informally, an algorithm is any well-defined computational procedure that takes some value or set of values as input and proceeds some value or set of values as output. An algorithm is thus a sequence of computational steps that transform the input into the output. I'll explain you, wait. You give input to your computer for anything, whatever you want. Like you need a code for even number, you have to check whether a number is even or odd. You have to give some input, like you have given input as n or anything, okay? And you want to get an output. So basically an algorithm is that whatever you do to achieve your output, it's just depend on your algorithm. Like for an example, I have already told, let's say you have given n as an input and you want to achieve whether the number is even or odd. So what will you achieve? A common algorithm. They can't wait. Okay, wait. Can you see my screen now? Okay, I got answers. So what I was telling that I have given some input, okay, and for that I want to achieve an output. So basically an algorithm is a thing that how you can achieve the output, and then we'll be talking about how efficiently an algorithm can be. Let's take an example that you have given n as an input and you want to achieve whether the number is even or odd. So what will be the first thing that your strikes, that is how to check whether the number is even or odd. So according to, so for checking a number as an even or odd, you have to divide the number by 2. If it is divisible by 2, it's even, otherwise it's not. So the algorithm for this, if n is divisible by 2, then it's even. Otherwise, it's odd. So this is the basic algorithm for this. So I think, wait. Is my screen is, I'm getting again and again that my screen is not visible. My screen is visible, right? Okay. So I've talked about algorithm. So now analyzing an algorithm, how you would analyze the algorithm. Analyzing an algorithm has come to mean predicting the resources that the algorithm requires. Basically, it's like, not now. Wait. What's happening? Okay, I got it. How to share the. Now it's visible, right? Okay. I got it. Okay, so I was talking about algorithms. So analyzing an algorithm is basically how you can make an algorithm in an efficient way. Okay, we'll be talking about different algorithms in this webinar, and we'll be talking about how I have made them efficient. Okay. Okay, so first of all, what is naive algorithm? A naive algorithm is an algorithm that behaves in a very simple way, say like a child would. You don't concentrate on this definition, okay? See this, a naive algorithm is usually the most obvious solution when one is asked a problem. According to me, that whatever the first thing strikes you after seeing the problem is naive algorithm. Okay, it may not be a smart algorithm, but probably get the job done. Yeah, your code will run, but you don't know whether it's efficient or not. Okay. Oh, I've taken some examples of algorithms. Okay, so just see, search for a given word in a document, measure similarity of documents. So in this, we are just doing linear scan. Linear scan by default in computers is from top to bottom and left to right. Okay, but for this too, we can easily deduct that the algorithm used is linear scan. But now, if you see, find the best assignments of students to dorm rooms, find the shortest path between the locations, identify objects in photograph. You can't predict easily what's the algorithm used in this. Okay, so for that, huh, another example, it's an example of AI algorithm that whatever be the next step of the white marker or black marker of the user, whichever be the user, black or white, according to that, computer would run is next step. That's an AI based algorithm. Okay, so there are different sorts of algorithm. We'll be talking about number theory algorithms. Okay, that is the first topic that comes in competitive programming. So we'll be talking about that. That's what I've told that in today's webinar, we'll be discussing about number theory, first Fibonacci series, then GCD, then prime number. And after that, if after that, we'll be talking about time complexity of their algorithms. Okay. So first of all, Fibonacci series. So Fibonacci series definition is Fn when n equal to 0 is 0, 1 when n equal to 1, f of n minus 1 plus means sum of the preceding two when n is greater than 1. Yeah, I'll be sharing my contact detail as well as my PPT after the session ends. Okay, so next. So this is the definition you can see above. A series of number in which each number, that is a Fibonacci number, is the sum of the two preceding numbers. The simplest series is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. Basically, it's just the sum of the preceding two numbers. 0 and 1 are defined, then after that, you have to just sum of the preceding two numbers. Okay. In ancient times, it was the Fibonacci series was developed for the to study the rabbit population. You can see a tree branching here. Okay, from two, then two. Let's see how they have done. You can see a tree is making. Okay, okay. Let's come to Naive algorithm. Okay, so what is Naive algorithm? I already told you the first thing that strikes you is Naive algorithm. So just see this definition. What it says that when n is equal to 0, fn is equal to 0. When n is equal to 1, fn is equal to 1. And when n is greater than 1, just sum the preceding two numbers. Okay, so I'll tell you the pseudocode of the Naive algorithm of this first of all, then I'll write the code, then we'll talk about the efficient way how that algorithm can be made in an efficient manner. Okay, so let's start. This is the pseudocode for the Fibonacci number. Okay, so what they have done, they have defined a recursive function in which a recursive function. What is a recursive function? First of all, you'll be thinking about it. A recursive function is that a function that repeats itself again and again till you achieve the desired output. Okay, so in the recursive function, I have made two conditions. If condition is that when n is less than or equal, when n is less than equal to 1, basically when you give input as 0 and 1, then you have to give 0 or 1 to the function value. Okay, else you have to return the function again for n minus 1 times plus n minus 2 times. Basically what it's saying, I'll tell you by writing the code, don't worry. Okay, so this is the code, but I'll write the code. Just tell me whether my screen is visible or not. Is code blocks is visible to everyone? Yes or no? Please write in chat box. No. Okay. Now is it visible? Haha, I'll maximize. Don't worry. Okay. So this is just, I'll be using C++ for writing the codes, but you can use any language. Don't worry for that. I'll be I'll be telling you everything in that. Okay. This is just a header file for input and out to get the input and output on the command window. Okay. Using namespace std. This is just a standard template so that you can use a function or something in your program. Okay. So let's start. What I have told in the pseudocode that you have to return n if n is equal to 0 or 1, and else you have to return the Fibonacci recursive function for n minus 1 times plus n minus 2 times. Okay, so let's write the code. Okay, so first of all, I have to get the input from the user. So I am getting the input from the user. Okay, I have declared an int variable n, then I have got the input from the user, that is n. Basically, I have done this. Now I'll define a function. Okay, I don't want to use function prototyping, so that's why I'm writing the function above the name. Okay, so a function of n type, and I'll be giving the parameter for main, so that's why I'm writing int in the parenthesis of the function. Okay, so I have already told in pseudocode, if n is less than equal to 1, then you have to return n, means 0 or 1, else you have to return n minus 1 times iteration plus recursive function n minus 2 times. Okay, and now you just write cout what you want to print the function, and I'm giving the parameter n to the function. Okay, so let's execute this code. I'll write some code name that it's Fibonacci, that fib.cpp. Is my CMD window is visible for everyone? Please write in chat box. No. Okay. Wait. Now it's visible. Okay. So yeah, I got it. Okay. So you have to give some number input. Okay, that's till how much you need the Fibonacci number sum. Okay, basically it's like that. Which number you want? Like I want the number that is at the fifth digit in the Fibonacci series. So I am giving input as 5, not 5, and answer is 5. You can see that someone has written no. My screen is not visible. CMD window. Okay. So see, I have given input as 5 and I got output as 5. Now let's check how this output is coming. Okay. Wait. Now my code block should be visible, right? Okay. So see how the output is coming. You have given n equal to 5 in this. Okay. You have given 5 in this. 5 came here. It's checked the condition that 5 is less than or equal to 1. No, it's greater. So it goes to this condition. It gives 4 here, that is n minus 1, then 3 here. Then this n minus 1 would again go to this function. It's recursive. Okay. Then again 4. For 4, it's checking the condition that 4 is less than or equal to 1. No, 4 is greater. So it comes to else condition. Now for 4, it is doing this 3 and 2. And again this would turn till you get 1 or 0, because then you'll enter the if condition. Okay. Don't worry, I'll explain you again this through an example. Wait. Is my PPT is visible? Just write in chat box. Okay. Sir, 5 is the sixth term of the series. See, it's writing the sum till 5. Okay. Wait. I'll tell you. Okay. I got it. See, what I was telling. Basically, I'll first tell why this code is I have called this as a naive algorithm. Basically, why it's so slow. Okay. I've taken the int as 5. Okay, you have seen. So for 5, it has recurs 4 and 3. The function. They didn't understand. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Guys, this is the code. Okay, I'm explaining it again. Okay, I got in the chat box that it has not been explained. Okay, see what I mean that I have given 5 as the input. Okay, and this 5 means till what number you need Fibonacci series. You were tell 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Someone was telling that, sir, the sixth digit is the 5, right? I am telling that till the sum of these two numbers I am reflecting in the output. Okay, is your doubt clear? Subhojit, please write in chat box. Okay, got it. And I'm explaining the algorithm again as I got that some people had not understood. See what I'm telling that for 5 you have passed here 5. Okay, now 5 is not less than equal to 1. Okay, so it would go to else condition. Now you have given here 3 and 4, sorry, and here 3 means this I am calling this function again for int n is equal to 4. Now this function will run again where it would give here 3 and 2. Okay, and see I have not run this loop recursive function loop for n equal to 3 till now, because I already told by default the system would read the code from top to bottom and left to right. So first of all it will execute whole thing till you get n equal to 1 or 0, means if condition, that it would return to this function. Okay, then after that it would go here, means for 4, that the first condition, when you give 5 then return 4 and 3 means to the function. Now after executing for 4, then for 3, then for 2, then for 1, for only this 4 it would go for this 3, that is we got from 4. From 4 we get 3 and 2. Okay, for 3 now it would execute. From 3 you will get 2 and 1. Now it would execute for 2, that you got 1 and 0. Now when you give 1 it would come here. Okay, you got it. See, till now you have not even goes to this 2, that is the last second step, to calculate for the 1. You're getting that how many times this function is recursing itself. Okay, so that's what I am telling through my PPT. See this. For this 5, you can see my PPT, right? Okay, that's what I'm telling for this 5, that when you give 5 as the input, okay, for 5 it would recurs first of all for 4 and 3. Now for 4, just for first, that is for first fib of n minus 1. Okay, it has not even executed for fib of n minus 2. Now for 4 it will go to it will give to the return function 3 and 2. Now first of all 3 would get executed, and for 3 you need 2 and 1. Now for 2 you need 1 and 0, and after this recursion only for the 2 recursion would stop. Now it would come back to this 1 and it would get 0. Okay, now for this 3 it will go to 2 and it would recurse for 1 and 0. it would recurse means it would give return f of n minus 1 and f of n minus 2, that is 1 and 0, and then for 1 it would recurse for 0. Now it will go, this step is over, now it will go to 3. So you can see how many times the recursion is going on. Okay, so this code is not efficient. What I'll do in efficient code, I'll tell you, I'll store these value in an array, so that for 5 you need 4 and 3, and for 4 also you need 3, right? For whole this process, I'll store the values directly, so that I will not execute for this 3. Okay, so see, you can see how many times the iteration we will not do. Okay, so let's try the, are you getting what I mean? For this naive algorithm, please write in chat box. Okay, thank you. So now let's go to the efficient algorithm of this code. Okay, I'll tell you the runtime analysis of this naive algorithm at the end. Okay. Okay, so this is the efficient algorithm. I already told that I will store the values in the array, so that I will not recurse the function and again for that thing that was in return n minus 2. You got it? So I'll write the code. Okay, wait. My code blocks is visible, right? Please write in chat box. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm writing the code for the efficient algorithm. Okay, so wait, and after that I'll try to tell you that why that code was taking too much time. Theoretically we have proved, but how you have got that this code is taking too much time through code, I'll tell you that also. Okay, so first of all I'll write this code and I'll tell you the time analysis of this code. Okay, wait. Till here everyone would get what I am writing. After that I am telling you. Okay, so first of all I have declared again int n, then I am taking input from the user. Okay, after that I have to I am declaring and 1d array of n size. See, I can use vectors also, but I already told in the starting of this session that I'll not be language specific. Okay, this array can be made everywhere, but vectors and stls, these type of things that basically will be using in C++, Java and all. Okay, so I've declared first of all 1d array, and I in the definition we got that for n equal to 0, function value is 0, and for n equal to 1, function value was 1. So I'm storing in the array that a of 0, the zeroth position value is 1, and sorry, a of 0 is 0 and a of 1 is 1. Okay, now I'm running a loop from int I equal to, from 2, obviously I'll run the loop from 2 till n less than equal to n, and I'll be increment the loop by 1. Okay, and directly I'll store the value. I'll tell you how I'm writing a of I minus 1 plus a of I minus 2. See, now I'm directly storing the value in the array. How? See, if you get 3, okay, let's take you got 3 in this loop, like I is equal to 3. I is equal to 3. So for a of 3, when I is equal to 3, a of 3, you need a of 2 and a of 1. Okay, for a of 2, First of all, this loop, this wait. I've taken wrong example. Wait. Let's take from the starting that first I equal to 2, from I equal to 2, this loop when run. For I equals to 2, it needs a of 1 and a of 0. So a of 1 is equal to 1 and a of 0 is equal to 0, means basically it will store the value a of 2 as a of 1 plus a of 0, that is 1. Okay, now I need for 5. Okay, I need for 5 iteration. Then for I equal to 3, this loop will come and you will write 3 here, I equal to 3. For I equal to 3, you need a of 2 and a of 1. Now I'll not reiterate this function, okay, not loop. I have already stored a of 2 value before, that was 1. Okay, this value has been stored in the array. Now when I'll do I plus plus, then this loop will run again, and you need for 4. For 4 you need 3 and 2. Basically a of 3 I've already stored in the previous step. So that thing, that recursive thing is now we are not doing. Okay, means it would reduce the time. Okay, I'm not telling what time it would reduce, but it would reduce some time. You have got that. Okay, so I'm writing the code and I'll execute that. And see out the a of n. Okay, see out a of n and return c of the function. So for 5, let's say, because I have taken the example. Oh, wait. My CMD would not be visible, right? Wait. Now my CMD could be visible, I guess. So let's see for n equal to 5. Okay, so I have written here 5. Oh, wait. For return I have here 5. So I got 5. Let's take again. So let's execute this again. Okay, I have to share again and again this window. Wait, sharing it again. For 6, I'm getting 8, right? 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, so now is my PPT is visible? Please write in chat box. Yeah, okay. So basically, I've already told this code that I'm storing the number in array, and I've executed that code also. Okay, so why this code is more efficient than that code? I already told you that I have storing the values in the array directly. So I am just, see this slide, check this slide. See, I've already told that I am executing the thing, this wait. I'm executing this code f of n minus 2 for 2 times here for a small number. Okay, for a small iteration, f of n minus 3 for 1, 2, 3 and so on. And similarly for a large, if n is very large, you have to calculate this. I'll check, I've highlighted for f of n minus 1, f of n minus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For a bigger number, it would be for f of n minus 5, it would be around 6 to 7 times. So by storing the number in array, I minimize that time that this process I will be executing for once only. So this is why that is the efficient algo. Okay, so I am hoping that Fibonacci number, the naive and the efficient algorithm is clear to everyone, right? Please write in the chat box so that we can start second algo, as we are having lack of time, right? Wait. Okay, so let's start the second algo of the day, that is GCD. So GCD is basically, what's the definition? It's been already being shown for integers a and b, their GCD is the largest integer d, so that d divides both a and b. It's basically things that if you have two numbers, for an example, you have two numbers 5 and 4. What is the largest integer that divides both 5 and 4? It's 1, right? So I have written the naive algorithm for that. Naive algorithm, I'm not typing the naive algorithm because as we have already have only 20 minutes for this session. So I'll explain naive algorithm and I'll write the efficient algorithm. Okay, don't worry for that. So for naive algorithm, see this. I have declared one function. Okay, and I'll be passing two values a and b in this. This is the best is the temporary variable. Best is the temporary variable that I have set to 0, and then I am running the loop I from 1 to the smallest of the two numbers. So first question arises, why you have taken smallest of the two numbers? So let's take one example, like a is equal to 5, okay, and b is equal to 10. Okay, these two are numbers. So just tell me, can 10 have a divisor greater than, sorry, can a, that is 5, can have a divisor greater than 5? It's obviously no. So that's why I am running the loop from 1, that is 1 divides every number, so that I can get at least the, I'll tell you why I have taken 1. So basically I have run the loop from 1 to the smallest of these two numbers, that is 5. Okay, then I am checking the condition. If the number a is divisible by I and b is divisible by I, then the temporary variable set it to the value d. What is d here? D is, sorry, d is, it is not d, it is basically I. Okay, it is basically I. So then for this I'm returning the best value to the function. So let's take two example that how I am running this loop and how I am getting the output. Okay, let's take two small numbers, this only 5 and 10. Okay, we all know the GCD of 5 and 10 is 5, right? So I am giving a as 5 and b is 10. Okay, now the temporary variable has been set to 0. Now I am running this loop, for loop, from 1 to the smallest of the two number. The smallest of the two number is 5. So from 1 to 5, I'll run the loop. Now a is 5. When you divide 5 by I, that is 1, and 10 by 1, you will get that these both are divisible, right? Then the best value is I, means that is equal to 1. Now you will check for 2. When you will divide 5 by 2 and 10 by 2, this is not divisible. Then for 3, this is not divisible. Then for 4, this is not divisible. Then for 5, it is divisible, right? And for 5, it is also divisible. Now the best value, that is I, would be changed to 5. Okay, now if for an example, I have written this loop I from 1 to largest of the number, then largest of the two number was 10. Okay, means now 6 would come. 5 divided by 6, does it even making sense that it would divide 5? Okay, there would be always one remainder, that is 5. Okay, so that's why I have run the loop from 1 to the smallest of the two numbers. Okay, now for after 5, this for loop would stop as its last value was 5. Then return best. Now best value was 5. Then you have returned the value to the function, that is 5. Now it would throw 5 as an output for GCD of two numbers a and b. Okay, you got it, the naive algorithm? Please write in the chat box as soon as possible. Okay. So this is the code. I shared this code and I'm just explaining this code for once. Okay, see, I've written this. I in the pseudocode I've already told everything, so I'll be fast for this. See, first of all, I have checked here one condition, that which is the smallest of the two. Give the function, give a value to the smallest of this and b value to the largest of this, because here in C and in D I am passing means this is value is a, this is value is b, and I am here passing C, that is the smallest of the two. That's I already told in the pseudocode. Okay, now it is checking that c percentage I. C percentage I means it would throw the remainder. Okay, means if 10 is divisible by, if 10 divide 10 mod 5 means the remainder is 0 because it is divisible by that. So if both gives remainder 0, then make the value of e as I and return e at last. So this I have already explained this code in the naive algorithm. Okay, so we'll go again. So this is the efficient algorithm. So for this efficient algorithm, I have to tell you about the Euclid's lemma. What is Euclid's lemma? So let's come to that. Okay, see, Euclid's lemma is, see, I'll tell you in short because we are already running of time. See, let's take an example like we have to find GCD of two numbers. That is, one is, let's take one as 10 and other as 25. We all know the GCD of these two number is 5. Okay, so what it is showing that divide among these two number, like b is the greatest. Okay, so divide 25 by 10. Okay, and you will get some remainder and you will get some constant that would be basically q into the smallest number. Okay, something. So let's take for 25. 25 can be written as, when you divide this by 10, you got 5 as remainder, right? And you'll multiply something by 10. Okay, that is some constant that is basically here 2, right? So basically you can write 25 as 5 plus 2 into 10. 10 is basically the smallest number a. Okay, this is a dash and this is b. So you can see here, right? So you can see here that a is equal to a dash plus b into q if a is the largest of these two. Okay, so what Euclid's lemma told you about that, when any number can be written as remainder plus something into that number. Okay, it has just given this idea. So how we'll implement this? So here it is done, d divides a and b if and only if it divides a dash and b. So how is this possible? So let's take again that example. How? Next slide. Okay, 25 when divided by 10, I told you 25 is written as 5 plus 2 into 10. Okay, hello, you are getting that right? Guys, am I audible? Please write in chat box fast. Yeah, okay. See, so when you divide 25 by 10, you will get 5 as the remainder, and this 2 into 10 means 2 into the divisor. Okay, basically this. So what he has told, if 10 divides 25, then 10 should also divide this. What is this? This is remainder a dash, means the remainder should be 0. Basically it should be 0, then only the number would be divisible. For an example, let's take 20 and 10. Okay, when 20 is divided by 10, you'll get the remainder as 0 and 2 into 10, right? So the basic idea of this, that this number, the remainder should also be divisible by the greatest number, that whatever be the divisor that would be the greatest should be divisible by that number also. So you'll get the GCD of that. Okay, and let's discuss why it's efficient. Okay, I'll tell you. See, I'll write this code, don't worry. Is my code blocks is visible to everyone? Yeah, okay. So basically I'm writing the code in this only. Okay, I'm giving two numbers as an input. Okay, now in the pseudocode I already told that I'll declare one function gcd, let's say its name is gcd, and I'll pass the two parameters in C and in D. Okay, now first condition should be first condition should be C. I have written if B sorry, if any of these two number, if D is equal to 0, what is D? Okay, D is the number that is the smallest of these two. Okay, or it could be greatest of the these two. It doesn't depend. Any of the number is 0. Then for an example, if you take 0 and 25, what's the GCD of these two? 25. Okay, 0 when divided by anything would throw out you 0. So means its GCD would be the biggest of these two numbers. Okay, so I've checked the condition. If D is equal to 0, then you should return C. Why C? Then I'll why C, I'll tell you later. Okay. First of all, I'll write the code as we are running out of time. See what I've written here. I should check one condition here, which is the largest of these two. Okay, I have assumed that C is the largest of the two. I have assumed it here that C is the largest of the two. That's why I am dividing C by D, which C is the largest. Okay, let's take an example. I've already told you about for 25 and 10. So C value, that is 25, that is A, I'll throw through the through parameter. Okay, and D value is basically B value. Okay, but you should check the condition which of them is largest, then you can give the like B is the largest, so here C value should be B and D value should be A. I'm assuming that we have, means I'm not writing the condition here, I'm assuming that I'll pass the value on the CMD according to this code. Okay, and I'll see out GCD of the numbers. Okay, so let's try out. Okay, is my CMD visible to everyone? Okay, yes, okay. Okay. So I'm writing that two numbers only, 25 and 10. The GCD of the number is 5. You can see here. Okay. I'm writing again for bigger two numbers. Example 225 and 50. So I'm telling you the GCD of the two numbers is 25. You can get it. Okay. If some people are saying to me that 225 and 50, that's I've taken the example right now. Yeah, okay. Now let's talk why this code is efficient than the previous code. Okay. Okay, see, so in the previous code, this is the wait. This is the efficient code. Okay, so in the previous code, you have gone a for loop for I to the smallest of the two numbers, right? Okay, let's take a big number. Let's say two numbers are 225 and 230. Then you have to run the loop till 225. Okay, but in this code, basically you have to just write 230 when divided by 225. What's the remainder? 5. And you will write q into 225, that is q is value is 1. Now for next step you have to take 5 and 225. For 5 and 225, 225 can be written as, when you divide 5, what you will get? The remainder would be 0, right? And some constant into 5. Okay, so in only 2 steps you are getting the answer. For Naive algorithm, you have to run the loop till 225. Okay, you'll find out that for GCD 225 and for GCD of two numbers for 225 and 230, that is 5, and we are achieving here. Okay, so am I clear? Has everyone has understood the GCDs, both the codes? Please write in the chat box. We have just 10 minutes more. Please write, guys, in the chat box. And and my voice is not breaking till now, right? Okay, 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 okay. Okay, so let's go to the new topic, that is prime number. Okay, if I'll get the time, I'll tell you about the running time analysis of both the codes. Otherwise I'll tell you the running time analysis of prime number for sure. Okay, see, so what is prime number? A prime number is a number that is divisible by 1 and the number itself. Sure, so this is the naive algorithm of that. Okay, okay, so naive algorithms tells you that for a prime number, I have to check whether a number is prime or not. You have to run a loop from 2 to n minus 1, because 1 is neither a prime nor, or 1 is, every number is divisible by 1. So you have to check from 2 to n minus 1. Okay, if the number is divisible by, if the number is divisible by I here, if n by 2 is divisible by I, not 2, okay, it would be I, wait, it would be I. If the number n is divisible by I, then it is not a prime, otherwise it's a prime number. Okay, so for that also, see, so this is a naive algorithm, this is a naive algorithm code. I'm not writing the code for this, I'll just explain to you. No, I'm not gonna explain Sieve, as I'm already running out of the time. I have already told in the starting of the session that I'll be covering 3 topics: Fibonacci series, GCD, and prime numbers. So this is the last topic. Okay, this code I'll explain you. Okay, I'm not writing this code, I'll write the efficient code. Okay, here, come here. Okay, if n percentage I is equal to 0, temp is equal to temp plus 1. Okay, so here I have, first of all, in the main only, I've run this for loop from 2 to n. That's I have already told in the pseudocode. I have given input n, that for n is, let's say for n is equal to 7, I have to check whether this number is prime or not. Okay, so first of all, n is 7. It would check for 2. If you get the remainder 0, okay, then increment temp value by 1. Okay, I have set the temp value as 0. Okay, if the number is divisible by 2, then increment the temp value by plus 1. Okay, so that after that I'll tell you. Okay, now when 7 percentage 3, it's not, the remainder is not equal to 0, then it would come, this the loop will run again. Now it would check for 4, now it would check for 5, then for 6. It has got that for any of these number, the remainder is not equal to 0. Okay, so the temp value that I have already declared as 0, it's 0 only. So if temp is equal to 0, see out prime, else not prime. Let's take an example, the number that is not prime. 8. Okay. First of all, I'll divide the number 8 by 2. I got remainder as equal to 0. Temp value would be increment. I don't care the temp value, what is the temp value. It should be either 0 or not 0. If it is not 0, then it should print prime. It is 1, 2 or 3. Okay. So everyone would be thinking that if once I got its remainder is equal to 0, then why this loop is running again and again? Okay, that's why this is naive algorithm. Okay, that's the basic thought, that from 2 to n minus 1, I'll run the loop and I'll check if the number. You have to print. You have to print that whether how many numbers, when 8 is divisible, how many numbers are divisor of these number. Then you have to do this. Okay. See, guys, my audio is. Am I audible or not? I've been called. Yes. Okay. 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 So. Yeah. So let's come to now the efficient code, where I'll tell you why this problem is happening. Okay. So the efficient algorithm. Okay. In efficient algorithm, you'll run the loop from 2 to square root of n plus 1. I'll tell you why this is plus 1, and I'll tell you why this is square root. So again, Euclid has proved one thing that I'll share. Okay. So this is a proof. I'll tell you by taking 2 examples. Okay. Wait. See, let's take one number 100. Okay. Let's take a is equal to 100. Now the square root of 100 is 10, right? If you will prime factorize 100, it would be something. I'll tell you direct. 100 can be written as 10 into 10. It could be written as 5 into 20. And it could be written as 4 into 25. It could be written as 2 into 50 and so on. But you will notice one thing, okay, that if a number, whatever be the number, it should have one divisor between 2 to the square root of the number. One number, okay, at least one divisor, if it is having any prime factorization. Okay, like let's take an example again. Let's take 7. 7 can be prime factorized as 7 and 1. Okay, it could be written as only 1 and 7. Okay, and square root of 7, it would be something 2 point something. Okay, so what I mean, that this number, whatever we will be giving the number as an input, that number should have a divisor from 1 to square root of that number. This has been proved in the Euclid's lemma, already mentioned in this page, but I am telling you through an example. Okay, so if you are not clear with this, just tell me. I'll take one example. I'll take one more example and I can tell you. Please write in chat box fast. Please give one more. Okay, 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 sure. Okay, I'll take here. Okay, just Pushpendu, give one number to that. 145. Okay, 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 okay. The square root of, then now you will be telling me everything. Okay, the square root of 145 would be approximately, just tell me. Okay, 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 12. Okay, okay, 144. Okay, 12. And I'll be asking Pushpendu, okay, again and again to you only. Okay, now tell me, what is the prime factorization of 145? Pushpindu, I am waiting. Prime factorization, bro. Okay, good. Okay, so you told me it's 29 into 5. Okay, is there any prime factorization? No, the answer is no, only 1 into 145. Can you see the square root of the 145, approximate square root of the 145 is 12, and you are getting at least one divisor if it has some divisor less than 12, 5 and 1. You got it what I mean? Pushpendu, I need your answer, please. Yes, okay. Everyone is clear with this, right? Please write in chat box. Okay. So let's discuss its code. Okay, so here I am writing this code. Okay, wait. Okay, I'm writing this code. Okay, so first of all, I'm giving the number. Okay, sorry, I have to declare first. I'm declaring the number integer. Then I'm giving the input as the number. Okay, then I'm running the loop for int I equal to 2 from 2 till I is less than square root of n plus 1. Why I am doing plus 1? I'll tell you. First of all, I'm not uh, taking as square root of n. I'm taking it first of all square root of n so that I can tell you why I'll be writing plus 1 here. Okay. Then incrementing the loop I plus plus. Okay. If n percentage I is equal to 0, then temp is equal to temp plus 1. That's what I have to declare temp here also. Okay, now okay, when this condition is over, oh sorry. After this, if temp is equal to 0, cout prime, else cout not prime. Okay, I'm running this loop. Int I square. Okay, see, it has shown one error. Why? Because I have not included the header file, that is cmath.h, for using square root of n. So basically I'll use bits slash standard c++ dot h. Okay, so I'm using this header file. This header file is basically a header file that contains all the header files of the C++. Okay, this header file contain all the header files, that is iostream, cmath, string, all the things. Okay, so I'm using this. Okay, now I have to check the number is prime or not. For let's take 1 second. 145 he has told, right? 145. It's a not prime because you have seen that it has been written as 129 into 5. Okay, now I'll do for some numbers that is prime. Any number, let's take 7. One minute. See, you have seen here that when I have written 7, it has shown not prime. Why? Because I have not initialized the value of temp as 0, so it has given some garbage value which is not equal to 0, so it has shown not prime. Okay, now if I'll check, see, you can see that it has shown prime. Right now, let's take one bigger example, bigger number, any bigger number. Okay, 1 minute. Something like this. Okay, see, it has shown that within a second it has shown this number is prime. At last, so I'll take just 5 minutes more. Okay, guys, I'll explain you the running time analysis of these two codes of time only. Okay, okay, so see, for that we have used a for loop that runs from I equal to 2 to I less than n minus 1, less than n. Okay, I plus plus. Okay, let's take for executing this for loop. For executing this for loop, computer takes 1 milliseconds. Okay, now if I take an example for n, okay, let's take, you have given a number that is n, then n as like for 10. Okay, let's take 10. Okay, then this loop, the naive algorithm loop, this would run for n minus 2 plus 1. Why plus 1? Plus 1 because it checks the condition at last, and it has, when it checks the condition at last, it has seen that this condition does not satisfy, so it doesn't run the loop, but it has gone to that for loop. So that's why I have included plus 1 for that. Okay, and coming to this, square root of 10 is 3 point something one, example 3.1 I click. So this will, oh sorry, I have not tell you that why I have not written, why I have written 1 here. Why? Because when you'll give c in s2, okay, if 1 is not here, c in s4, okay, when you'll give c in s4, square root of 4 is 2, when we'll come to this condition I equal to 2, I should be less than 2. Okay, so it would not run this loop. It would not run this loop. It would show prime number. Why? Because it has not incremented the temp value. So for 4, it would show prime number. But for this case only, I have included 1. See, if you now write square root of 4 plus 1 means it would 3, means it would run this loop and check this condition, and you will check that n is 4, when n is divided by 2, temp value would increment and it would show not prime. For this case, I have to add plus 1 here. Okay, so I was here that I was telling it running time analysis of this. So if I'll take that for running this loop once, 1 millisecond is taken by the computer. Okay, so n equal to 10. For this, loop would run for n minus, for square root of n plus 1 minus 2 plus 1. Why I am telling square root of n for this? Okay, minus 2 because it is starting from plus 2, and 1 for the last condition. Okay, for 10, this would take 10 minus 2 plus 1. It would take 9 milliseconds to get the output. For this, root 10 plus It's plus 1 minus 2 means it's only take root 10. Root 10 is 3.1 means for 3.1 millisecond it would show you, give you the output, and it will take 9 millisecond. Now let's assume, now I am ignoring this constant. So let's take that this only takes n milliseconds to run this loop once, and this would take root 10. Now if you take 1000, okay, it would take around 1000 milliseconds to run to get the output, and it would take root over 1000. Now you can assume that why this code is efficient and why this code is not. So guys, this is the end of this session, and I hope that you have understand whatever I was telling for the three algorithms, Fibonacci and GCD and the prime number. So yeah, someone has asked that you'll share the PPT or not. So I'll share. I'm giving the drive link in the chat box, and I'm sharing the feedback form. Please fill that also. And you can contact me through mail ID. This is my mail ID, jagupta1801@gmail.com. And I hope that something you will be getting from this session. So one question is there: which language is most used for competitive coding? See, Java and C++, both languages are used for competitive coding, but C++ is very fast. How? See, you have heard from your seniors or you have seen any language that Java you have to write the codes. There is a much writing things in that. For C++, just see, for giving an input you're writing C indirectly. For that you have to write system.print.ln, then bracket, and for that you have to define one function above. So according to me, C++ has lot of benefits. For C, I have declare 1D array in this by just writing the vectors in the, by using the use of vectors. You don't have to think about whether you have to declare 1D array, 2D array. By using the STL, you can write the sorting things just by one line. Like you have included, wait, I'm giving, can we use Python? No bro, Python is too slow. You can find on Google that you just write, should I use Python for competitive coding? You'll get a lot of answer why Python is slow. I was telling for him, for her. Thanks for this. Thank you very much. So guys, you have got the drive link. You can download the PPT and you can run the codes that I have shared. They are running. And we'll share the feedback form on the unofficial group. Those who have attended, okay. Will ICPC happens this year? I don't know, bro. So guys, we have noted the attendance. Okay, so according to that only you should fill the feedback form. Okay, we'll be sharing the feedback form on the unofficial or in the first year, second years group. Okay. Can we have a session which discuss the use of trees, graphs in competitive coding? Yeah, sure. It would be my pleasure if I'll be telling about trees, graphs, STL, sorting types. See, after this algorithms, the another topic is time complexity. That comes second in the competitive coding part. Okay, I was taking that also, but I have only 1 hour. You can see that still I have exceeded 12 minutes from this session. So if I would be taking time complexity auto, it would take around 30 to 40 minutes. So that's we have many things, maps, trees, graphs. But if my senior would allow, I'll definitely take a session on that. Guys, any more doubts you have, you can write on chat box. I'll be available for just 2 or 3 minutes. If you don't have any doubts, we'll be winding up. Can you suggest where to study for competitive programming online? Can you suggest material? Huh, both have same question. So guys, you can recommend interview bit, okay, but that is only for questions. They have some tutorials also, but they think that you have already completed the DSA and the language part, okay. And if you don't have even started for this language, I will recommend you to use Geeks for the learning purposes. You can use HackerRank first of all, so that you'll get the basic language things, that or how to use the data type, pointers, functions. Okay, see, in competitive programming, oriented part is not included. First of all, I'm telling you, it's basically based on the algorithms and how it can be efficient using maps, trees, vectors, STL. This is the type. If you just don't waste time on object oriented programming part, because it would be asked in some, I can't say that it would not be asked in programming papers, okay, but it is not recommended to do object oriented part if you want to directly do competitive coding. There are a lot of sites, Prep Bytes, HackerRank, CodeChefs. You can go to that site, explore, and you'll get something. Should we wind up, guys? Is there any more doubts? So, okay, guys, we are winding up. Thank you.